Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video, we're going to watch me shovel some snow, and we're going to talk about something that I've often seen asked about in comment sections and live stream chats, and that is, what are some warning signs that the crap is about to hit the fan? Many people are curious what other people think will be some warning signs or red flags that an economic collapse is imminent or that the crap is about to hit the fan. And this can be an important topic to talk about because we definitely want as much advanced warning as we can that a situation is developing and as much knowledge as we can have about that situation. Intelligence gathering is one of the most important parts of our early reaction to an emergency situation. But I think it's important to analyze why we want those warning signs and what our reactions to them will be. We definitely want advanced warning, and all of us have things that we will do differently once we know that an emergency is coming that will affect us. But I worry that many people want these warning signs as a way to try to control a situation that they cannot control, or to instigate preps that they are consciously putting off until the last minute. Like I said, we all have things that we plan to do when we know that an emergency is developing. But I think it's important to always put our best effort out now to preparing ourselves to be already in a situation where we're best prepared to respond to those emergencies rather than consciously putting things off until the last minute. Last minute resource acquisition can be an important task if it's safe enough to do those things. But I definitely think that we need to be aware of why we want to do that and not necessarily taking an easy ride now and putting things off till later. It would be much better to live tight now and spend that money buying the things that you think you might need in an emergency situation rather than trying to hold on to that money and try to take care of all those things at the last minute. We've all seen what panic buying can do to people, and trying to rely on having an eye out for the warning signs of a crap hits the fan situation just so that you can beat the hordes to Walmart and buy some of those last minute goods before they get wiped off the shelf may not be a good idea because you may only find yourself there when the hordes descend and not with enough of an advantage to do a lot for yourself. In my mind, warning signs and red flags are the kinds of things that help us to get home safely and hunker down before all of the chaos begins, if that's what's going to happen. I would rather sacrifice the last little bit of my fluid cash and stay home and safe rather than try and be in a line at a gas station or beat that line to the gas station. Because you never know just when the news will hit everybody that things are changing dramatically. And it's much safer to be instigating your bug in preps than trying to be out doing some last minute resource acquisition. Now, that being said, if you have a coherent plan for what you're going to do in different situations, then you are probably well enough prepared to know what you're going to do in those situations. I'm mostly talking to the kind of people who are putting off a lot of things knowingly and hoping to have the warning that the balloon is going up to begin to instigate their last minute purchases and stuff like that. So, with all of that being said, I want to share a couple thoughts that I had on some warning signs or red flags that things might be changing dramatically. In this case, I'm thinking along the lines of corporations being aware that something is changing dramatically and beginning to behave differently because of that. The other night, I was sitting at a railroad crossing and it seemed to me that the train was passing abnormally fast. And I'm sure that I was just tired and it only seemed that way to me, but it got me thinking about the fact that corporations are bound by many regulations and by internal best practice protocols. But in dramatically changing situations, corporations may choose to ignore some of these regulations or protocols even if it means receiving fines. If they think that a economic collapse is imminent and they may not be paying those fines anytime soon. A corporate owner may see it as more beneficial to move resources into warehouses than to have them on rail lines or in storefronts if an economic collapse is imminent. And these are the kinds of things that someone who runs a corporation may be aware of. And so it got me thinking that things like Railroad trains moving very quickly or being stopped for long periods of times with supplies on them could be a warning sign that something interesting is going on. So, people who work for railroad lines or large distribution chains or large corporations themselves, like Walmart, may have warning signs if these corporations begin to stock more things than they normally would in their warehouses rather than at storefront. And indeed, in more drastic situations, if large box stores were to close their doors temporarily due to economic hiccups, that would be a big warning sign that they know something that many smaller places do not. Linked to this could be price increases or supply decreases in staple items like food, building supplies, fuel, tools, and raw materials, things which corporations may choose to limit their sales of if they're aware that drastic distribution or economic problems are inbound. Somewhat unrelated from the corporate sphere would be things like regular people talking about things that only preppers would normally talk about, like how certain emergency events which are occurring could have dramatic effects on the economy or on society. Things which are normally seen as conspiracies by regular people suddenly become topics of normal discussion when they become newsworthy or much more likely because an event is actually occurring. And when you hear normal people talking about things that surprise you because normally you only hear preppers talking about them, that's a good warning sign that the baseline has changed dramatically. Things that regular people might talk about that should definitely perk up your ears would have anything to do with hiccups in sea travel or distribution and telecommunications. If we have problems with our digital networks or with seagoing transport, our distribution networks could be crippled. And these are the kinds of things that regular people might talk about casually without realizing how important those events could be on the international scale. And so if you hear people starting to talk about those kinds of things, it's definitely something to think about and to start keeping your ears out for more information. This is why your ability to gather intelligence is so important. If you have any warning sign that a situation might be developing, that gives you the chance to contact people directly, whether that's through the digital network or ham radio or something like that, rather than waiting for YouTubers to break news to you, and find out whether or not there are things developing in other places, or whether or not this might just be an isolated situation. In my mind, good intelligence is far superior to all the warning in the world, because just the warning that a situation may be going on doesn't tell you much, and you may end up quitting your job and selling all your stuff and moving to the hills only to find out that the situation you thought was occurring isn't the situation that you thought it was. And this is why it's not necessarily enough to just pay attention for warning signs and red flags. Because much like when you learn a new word or see a new car that you like, you will start to hear that word everywhere or see that car everywhere, even though it's not around you any more than it was before. You're just more aware of it. And for this reason, I think that it's good to pay attention to warning signs, but only as a way to inform our opinion of our current circumstances. I think it's far more important to be preparing for all the situations that we worry about now and to be focusing on intelligence gathering and good, solid information of our circumstances rather than simply waiting for that go signal to start doing all of these wild things that we think we need to be prepared to do. Anyways, I hope those were some interesting thoughts. Please share some of your comments in the section down below about what some warning signs might be and what you think would be some really good rational responses to some of these crap hits the fan warnings that people are talking about. Thanks for watching and stay tuned with Let's Talk About Prepping for future videos. Stay safe out there, everyone.